Good morning. We're okay. So we'll move through each item, colleagues, and if there's something you'd like to stop and discuss, and Superintendent, if you have something to interject, that'll be fine. And then we'll just go ahead and carry forward with business as usual. All right, first of all is call to order. Second of all is approval of the agenda and any changes. And I'm showing no changes, but Mr. Attorney, you may have a change later,
sir.
is that correct?
Yes, sir. As to item 15.2, which is a scheduled public hearing for tonight on Resolution 24-01, I've been informed that there is an addendum being worked to that contract.
All right.
And therefore, tonight, we would ask the board, when we get to that item, if you would just vote to reschedule that public hearing. And as soon as that contract is revised, we will run a new notice and bring that back to you.
All right, so we're not going to hold that public hearing
That's-
tonight?
that'd be our
So anyone
recommendation.
that's maybe watching this will know
Yes,
if they
sir.
wanted, okay.
Correct.
All right, very good. All right, so recognitions, 3.1 would be recognition of Baker Girls Volleyball Team 2023 1A Florida High Athletic Association State Champions.
Woohoo!
Presented by
Woohoo! Miss E's
Superintendent
ready.
Chambers. Okay.
I'm on it.
Now, is this where we talk about inclement weather, or? Where you-
That's up to the superintendent. He makes that call, but
So I think, and I'll talk a little bit more in depth about it a little bit later, but as it pertains to tonight, based on what we currently have, even though there's a 10:30
Okay.
meeting
Okay.
to get an update
Right.
for the weather, but as it pertains to right now, what
Okay.
we know, we would not have any limitations to tonight.
Okay.
But I'll go a little bit deeper later.
All right. But things might change. Is that,
Based on this 10:30 update, things could change.
okay, okay. I don't know if we'll still be here by that time. Okay. All right, so go ahead, moving to Section 4, Administrative Personnel Appointments. It would be the appointment of the principal for Mary Esther Elementary School, recommended by the superintendent. And then 4.2, appointment of Principal Lewis School, recommended by the superintendent. Section 5 is public comment. Section 6, committee and staff reports. 6.1 is in-county travel paid for November 2023, presented by Ms. Perry. And then 6.2 is out-of-county travel paid for November 2023. All right, consent agenda. 7.1 would be to approve the consent agenda. 7.2 would be approval of the minutes of the workshop for December the 11th, 2023, and the minutes of the regular meeting December 11th, and recommended by the superintendent. 7.3 would be controlled open enrollment school capacity report for the 2024-2025 school year, presented by Mr. Horton. Mr. Horton, I see you rising, so please come forward.
Thank you, Dr. White, and
Yes,
I'll
sir.
be brief unless there are questions. So as the board knows, every year we are required to post a school capacity report that provides information to our families about where open seats are in schools throughout Okaloosa County. All districts in Florida do this. And so what you'll see, and I'll highlight this report that based on approval tonight, we would open our application window next Monday, January 15th. It would run for 1 month initially, and then we would continue, as open seats remain in certain schools, allow parents to select the best location for their student throughout the spring and summer. So this is just the kickoff. This will all be done through Focus this year in terms of parents requesting seats. There's a process in place for military families who come in and maybe don't know where they live, because when you create a parent account in Parent Portal, you're supposed to identify where you live, but there's also questions if you don't know where you're living, but you still want to select a school, they can do that. So we coordinate with Eglin and Hobart to make sure those folks have up-to-date information. We'll put some videos together to put online for families. The only changes this year in terms of, was a school closed the previous year and now open, or was it open and now closed? There are two that I would highlight. Bob Sykes, an elementary school in the North End. Now, Wendy Meserve, our MIS guru, has done a deep dive and is required at the state level to actually identify available seats by grade level. And so it's a challenge. But I'll give you an example. Laurel Hill is a great school in the north end of the county that in the kindergarten level might have 27 students at kindergarten. Well, that's a little too large for one classroom, but, so we end up hiring 2 teachers for that position. That creates 2 classes of potentially 13 and 14, which then, because we've got that expense of the extra teacher, opens up seats at Laurel Hill at that grade level. And the school enrollment, really taking a look at it at the individual grade level lets us do analysis like that. And it's never perfect, and enrollment changes and projections change, but this is our a launching point. And then we work with principals very closely to determine if things are getting particularly tight in an area. So that's the case. But Bob Sykes is one of those schools where we've identified a little bit of space in kindergarten, first, fourth, and fifth. Now, it's a layer of complexity this year, so a question of a school this year as to whether or not you're open or closed could depend on the grade level, okay? So that's the nuance here that is adjusting. Now, we are required at the state level to identify available seats by grade level, and we're required to do that throughout the year. Now, what I would say to the board is, if a family wanted to go to Bob Sykes and they had a kindergarten student, and there was space at kindergarten, but they also had a second grade student, and maybe there wasn't necessarily space at second grade, we always look at those in totality to try and let the family attend school where they want to attend. But if I were the parent of a hopeful Bob Sykes student, and I had a second grader, and I went into the portal to try to ask for a seat in second grade, it would show at this moment none available. So then that parent's recourse is to go through our hardship request like they've done in the past, and that will all be contained inside of Focus as well. So more granular. I think this actually helps us even further with teacher allocation pieces. And so if at Bob Sykes, the second grade already appears to be very full for the upcoming year, but yet we have 8 more students that want to come to second grade, then that's kind of forced our hand to have an extra second grade teacher at that school. And so that's kind of a thought process to go in to make sure we're being as supportive as we can of parents, especially through the hardship process, but also making sure that we're not overloading a particular grade level in the school that doesn't have the capacity to do that, if that makes sense. So Bob Sykes is one where we've changed up. The second one is Niceville High School. And one of the things that we're looking at even more closely is the concept of students in 6 periods of instruction. And board members know that sometimes students, when they get to their 11th or 12th grade year, they don't necessarily sign on for a full load of classes. They may take dual enrollment off campus. And so in conversation with the principal and looking at the available space in that school, we've been able to open up 70 seats at Niceville High School for the upcoming school year. And so when the window opens January 15th, families will be able to apply for those seats. It's not likely in the first 30 days while we have this initial window that more than 70 requests would come in. If in a situation like that, remember where 80 requests come in, we only have 70 seats, we move to a state statute required lottery process, which gives preferential treatment to active duty military dependents and some other categories. So those are the 2 big changes for this upcoming year. A couple of schools with seats that haven't before. Everyone else that was closed this year was also closed last year. And then being a little bit more granular in terms of grade level open seats.
Very good.
Okay?
Any questions, colleagues?
So it's Bob Sykes and where?
Niceville High School.
Nice.
Okay.
So my question is, and I know you usually answer that, you put that in your presentation, but your projected COE enrollment is a very conservative number. That's not saying that's.
And that's the other thing I've said to the principals, thanks, Mr. Bryant, is this projected COE enrollment is not the number we're going to be using to project our FTE for the upcoming year. We'll talk about that because the state window for doing projections for next year has not opened yet. But these numbers here, and I've told the principals, don't consider that number to be what we expect your full school enrollment to be next fall. It's not. Yes, sir. The other piece is we have self-contained units in a lot of our schools that take up classroom space. And so when you look at projections for how many students can you accept into a school, you have to account for the fact that several classrooms might be being used by classes with only 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 students in them. So it makes that number look lower than it will actually be.
Plus FTE on secondary level is different when you count classes and credits versus You know what I'm saying? Like a student may not go all day or something.
Well, one student doesn't typically equate to one FTE
Right,
anymore. You're
yeah.
right. It's
Right.
closer to one student might be 90%
Mm-hmm.
of an FTE because on average, not every student attends the full day of school.
Right.
Anything else? All right, thank you.
Yes,
again,
sir.
Ms.
Thank
Orton.
you.
Thank you.
All right, 7.4, Budget Amendment Number 3, Fiscal Year 2023-24, presented by Ms. Perry. 7.5, Monthly Financial Statement for November 23, presented by Ms. Perry. 7.6, Invoices to be approved for payment, presented by Ms. Perry. 7.7, School Donations, presented by Ms. Perry.
Dr. White, can I
Yes,
comment?
sir.
7.7.
Sure.
Again, thank you to everybody, all the businesses and people who have donated to our schools. Once again, that's a hefty amount for this board meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Bryant. All right, 7.8, Payroll Warrant Register and Accounts Payable Warrant Register totaling $49,758,662.12. Self-health insurance claims and fees totaling $2,831,869.94 and bank transfers totaling $20 million for November 2023, presented by Ms. Perry.
I have a question on
Sure.
on that where it says the self-help. Is that what we're paying?
That's what we're paying for the claims for medical insurance.
Okay, so those are the claims, and that's for what, block of time
Just for that month?
for that month?
Right.
So you-
As we pay our insurance each month with payroll, the
Mhm.
money gets taken out of general fund, federal fund, food service moved into the self-help medical fund.
Right.
Then we use that money to pay actual claims and
Okay.
our stop-loss insurance, those kinds of things. So what we're reporting to you is what we paid out of that fund for those claims and such.
And so, is this amount right here, is that pretty much average to what we've been doing? Okay, because, it's new with this self-insured, so I don't
Mhm.
know if that's a good number or a bad number,
It's about average. Yeah,
Okay.
We've been running pretty consistent.
Okay, so that's good. Okay, thank you for that clarification. Appreciate it.
All right, thank you both. All right, 7.9, Appointment of Selection Committee for RFP 24-01, External Independent Auditing Services, and RFP 24-02, Internal Accounts Auditing Services, presented by Ms. Perry. 7.19, Renewal of ITB 21-02, Custodial Chemicals and Supplies, presented by Mr. Wyndham. 7.11, tag-on bid purchase over $50,000 to Jackson Therapy Partners, presented by Mr. Wyndham. 7.12, tag-on bid RFP 19-01015-P-RP Speech Language Therapy Services, presented by Mr. Wyndham. 7.13, renewal of tag-on bid RFP 151702, dispensing system for general cleaning supplies, presented by Mr. Wyndham. 7.14, service agreement number 24-108, Dr. Dana Stevens, presented by Mr. Wyndham. And then 7.15, memorandum of understanding between the School Board of Okaloosa County and Colgate Bright Smiles Dental Program to provide no-cost preventative dental screening for students, presented by Ms. Schroeder. All right, taking us down to Section 8, Superintendent's Human Resources Recommendations. 8.1, Information Only, Employees on Administrative Leave, presented by Dr. Hale. 8.2, Information Only, Deferred Retirement Option Program, presented by Dr. Hale. 8.3, Employment Separations, presented by Dr. Hale. 8.4, Personnel Recommendations, presented by Dr. Hale. 8.5, Employee Transfers, presented by Dr. Hale. 8.6, Employee Suspension, presented by Dr. Hale. 8.7, Employee Suspension, presented by Dr. Hale. And then finally, 8.8, Leave Without Pay, presented by Dr. Hale. No discussion items as of now. Taking us down to section 10, 10.1, construction program owners representatives business. First of all would be a status program report by the board's representative. Anything today?
We will meet after this meeting, and if it's okay with everyone, I'd like to present that at the workshop instead of at the meeting.
Is that okay?
Is that all right?
All right, thank you. All right, thank you, Dr. Kelly. 8.2, funding and owner direct purchase for Central Administrative Building Phase 1 furniture for the GMP phase of task order number 24, presented by Dr. Smith.
Hey, that looked really nice. That's going to really move us into a new century and looking good, and it's exciting that we're moving along with that.
Yeah. All right, 10.3, TPM program number 6, task order number 12, scope modification number 2, cafeteria renovations repurpose, presented by Dr. Smith. All right, 11.1, Mr. Attorney, sir.
No report this morning.
All right, thank you, sir. All right, section 12, superintendent's business. You've got some out-of-state field trip requests there. Always read those with great interest. And then 12.2, sir, any correspondence, request, or other matters that you might have?
Thank you, Mr. Chair and School Board. First of all, I do want to say this is School Board Appreciation Month.
Oh.
And so you
Well,
may...
I don't send the emails coming.
We have a month.
That's right. That's right. And I'm well, I'll just say this, and just for me, to you all, couldn't be more grateful for this board. I've shared it before. You guys are not only a board that's here at the meetings, you're boards that are at the schools, you're at events, you're at ribbon cuttings. You're a board that puts in the time, the dedication to really help this school district move forward. We always say the back of this school district is what happens in the classroom, but we absolutely have to have a school board that supports the initiatives that are occurring. I just absolutely appreciate it. I appreciate that questions that you ask when you guys go through these agenda items. It's not necessarily always right here, but you guys always do your due diligence in asking the appropriate questions and challenging when you need to challenge. And I appreciate that as well, because it helps us be the school district that we are. So you might have something from me a little bit later, but just wanted to say that.
An email?
Yeah, exactly.
Don't open his email.
Also want to just say, I want to thank Dr. Seals, Ms. Lightbourne and her group for our professional learning day that we had on Friday. As you know, we had Gary Brooks here who spoke, I think, love, laughter, and really caring about kids and caring about employees. I think that went over very well with our teachers and staff based on comments to me. I thought it was a good day. Just again, appreciate the work that went into that. It's a lot to get almost 2,500 employees in one place at one time in an organized fashion. So just very much appreciate the schools who organized the buses, those who were going to drive, where they were going to sit, just everything. It was a great day, and you might have some comments about that before I go forward.
I do. I think it was fabulous. It was great. But I want to say to you, Mr. Chambers, you were the first speaker, and you set the tone, and you knocked it out of the park. And everybody's going around now with figuring out their word. And if you missed that, you need to check it out. But what I thought was so great about what you did was, again, it set the tone of such a positive morning. Going into that, talking about, as you always say, we're not a perfect school district, but then you went on to, we always have challenges, we're always try to get better, but you did point out, I think sometimes we hear so much negative in general, and then when you laid out, look what we've done, and you put it back on those teachers and said, you've done this. You had a lot of nice touches in there, recognizing senior members of our employees who've been around a long time, and then of course your former student who has one semester of experience, which was great. And then of course I think it's just so nice to have those employees in the same room, bringing in that emotion and all that unity that we had. And I thought you did an excellent job. And of course, I know that takes a lot of planning, and I appreciate Ms. Lightborn and Dr. Seals and everybody who put all that together. It was a very motivating start to the second semester. I heard a lot of comments after that from the different teachers and different things, how excited they were. It was palpable, the feeling of the upbeat and all that right there in that room, and it was really exciting. And I commend you and the district for starting that off. It was Mr. Brooks is hilarious. He definitely has a pulse on what's happening, and it's good to laugh at ourselves and some of those things, because we all know the things that he's talking about and the individuals and the characteristics. But it's good for us to be out and laughing and enjoying each other professionally and in a fun way like that. And so surely do appreciate taking the effort and everything involved. But again, your remarks starting it off, very good. Thank you.
And I would agree. I mean, you set the tone, and then, of course, Mr. Brooks just kind of put it in perspective and reality. Not being an educator, in my previous...
You're an other.
I'm another, but I could relate. I could relate because my interactions with teachers and principals and support people, they all tell you the same stories, So you, like Ms. Vanchek said, it's good that we can go and just have a smile and a laugh and just kind of decompress after 2 weeks of Christmas break and everything, and get ready for a great rest of the school year. I would just say that my word that I took from there, and I actually texted to him while he was speaking, I said visible. And I think that's what I appreciate about our school district, is that we are visible, not just the board, but the entire school district tries to play a part, being in the classrooms, being visible, listening. And so I just took that as my word moving forward to this year, is the visible part of our school district. So, but thank you to the invite too. So, I mean, I thought it was cool that we can say we saw Jerry Brooks, or Gary Brooks, I'm sorry.
I've said Jerry Brooks for approximately 6 years.
Well, he's
so,
got a G on it.
yeah.
So.
All right, but I appreciate that. Do want to let the board know, like we've spoken about in the past with our legislative priorities, January 9th is when the legislative session commences. So we are meeting with our local legislators. They're going to share our priorities, and I'm sure we'll have a number of other good conversations as well. We also will try to go beyond our legislators, even to others. I think it's important that we continue to push our message. And I think, like one of the questions you all had before, are we kind of aligned with FADS and the School Board Association? Not necessarily every single item, but definitely aligned with that push as well. I'd go on to the budget. So the 24-25 school year budget. And I say we're kind of commencing, even though Ms. Perry does a great job throughout the entire year, looking at our budget, where we are, making decisions accordingly. But in the January, February timeframe, we'll start the budget process where district departments will start looking at their budgets going into the second semester. That's where Mr. Horton and staff will start looking at the allocations that will go out to schools, as we've done in the past. He will be conservative in that venture, and as you know, allocations is a impact on budget, so that's something that we always want to be mindful of. I've shared with the board in this venue as well as one-on-one. ESSER is something that we're looking at, and you know that we have several. Just Okaloosa, just like almost every district in the state of Florida, has several positions that are funded through ESSER, and those are decisions that are going to have to be made. And one of the things that I will say, as you know, every year, and Dr. Hale, you can correct me if I'm wrong, every year we have approximately 200 to 180 to 200 vacancies, and Dr. Hale's even saying higher now nowadays. So we always have vacancies. So I shouldn't say any, the likelihood is that if a position is eliminated in the 24-25 school year, those individuals have teacher certifications, and we would look to prioritize those individuals and have a position here in our school district. So we want to be very mindful of those employees. We have sent letters to those employees, even last year in May and this year, if there was a new hire in one of those ESSER positions, so they know that that position is going away. And so we've also had conversations with the union as well. Just want to be sure that everybody is on the same page as it comes to that. But we will go through our budgeting process in the July timeframe. Ms. Perry will bring you a balanced budget, and we'll go through a process similar to what we've done in the past. The difference being with ESSER, there's going to have to be some priority decisions that are going to be made. Do want to share with you, as you know, August 2026 is when currently school start times are going to be adjusted. And just as a reminder to the board, high schools can start no earlier than 8:30 in 2026, and middle schools can start no earlier than 8 o'clock. Now, that would lead you to believe that maybe then elementaries would go down to the 7 o'clock time frame. So the last thing we want to do is have our elementary kids sitting at bus stops really early in the morning. That's not to say that some of that doesn't occur right now based on buses and schedules. So the thing that I appreciate is Mr. Horton and his group, Mr. Meyer, Mr. McGinnis, Jay McGinnis, as well as Mr. Spolsky coming in right now as well. In the first semester, they already started the process of already looking at the school start time. So they've had some meetings even as early as December. As we get into this second semester, there's going to be additional meetings of how do we get to this place. As you know, transportation's a big part of it. And then what does that look like? So the thing I appreciate is, though it's August 2026, they're already full board. I'm working on this right now. They'll be running simulations in the summer of 2025 to be a year ahead. In the summer of 2025, they'll already start running the bus routes without students, just so the bus drivers are looking at those routes. So is it something that we can do? Do we need to adjust? So just appreciate their diligence in that matter and really getting out ahead of this. Because as you know, for a school district, and we're not the only one, I would surmise that all other the other 66 school districts as well, I would bet, have difficulty hiring bus drivers. So if you stay to a 3-tiered system, you can imagine there's going to be some schools that could potentially start later than what we currently start at. So that's not necessarily the goal, which is why we're going through all of this. If we could get to a 2-tiered bus system, that means we would not only hire the bus drivers that were currently vacant, but then we'd have to hire even more, likely additional buses. So going to a 2-tiered bus system would probably be difficult. But again, I just appreciate the fact that they're going through this process right now.
Well, and the only thing I would add, Superintendent, that this is not something that the school board or you or any of us have caused to occur. This is a result of state legislation. That the legislature enacted this law to change these times, and they did that. And I know, having been associated with one of the 3 Bs, buses, it's a tall order when you look at changing all the bus routes for all the streets and homes in Okaloosa County. And this would never happen here, and it never has happened here, but I read with great interest several years ago down in Palm Beach County, I believe, that they decided to change all the bus routes, and guess what happened? They had kids waiting at bus routes and no buses. So I know it's a major undertaking. So thank you, Mr. Horton, and all your folks for working on that, and just wanted to make sure that everybody knew that we're working on it, as you said, and that the legislature's requiring this. Mr. Bryant?
So a follow-up on that is you mentioned that secondary was the only part that was in the law. There was nothing about elementary. And I think people need to realize that that's, you know, you're right. In a three-tier system, someone's got to be 1, 2, and 3. And that is going to be back on our elementary students. Now, I know you just said, and I appreciate that you know, you're putting those kids, those students ahead also. But I agree with Dr. White here that this was enacted by the state legislature. We're following the law. But I also know that there's going to be a couple of districts that are going to pilot this program to begin with. So even though the law does go into effect in 2026, like anything else out there, there could be some issues that cause it to be pushed back. There is a couple of districts that I know personally that are already on the early start time. So, but they're smaller districts though. So that does make a bigger difference when they're a lot smaller than our district. I just think that as much as I appreciate, you know, our lawmakers, you know, trying to put our secondary students in the forefront there and helping them with their abilities to, you know, get enough sleep and be productive and all, it does put a burden on the younger ones who I think are more vulnerable than our older ones in that case. But I appreciate the fact that you're already starting now and looking ahead, and, you know, when we do roll it out, you know, like you say, we're not a perfect school district, but at least we're going to be, you know, ahead of the game. We're going to roll it out, and it's going to, you know, follow the law.
Oh, absolutely, and we will definitely communicate with families along the way.
And has this been like the class size amendment? Are there any indications that there's any financial restraints or anything that's coming back to us if it's not followed? I know that there were as with class size amendments.
So I don't believe so, other than the fact that it'll be law.
As
So I
that
think
was
it's
too.
So I think it's and I know what you're saying. So I don't necessarily know that for certain, but what I do know is there's a clear expectation that we're in line to be with the start times in 2026. But I'm not sure about the financial implications at this time.
And you may recall that I was part of the party that presented indication research to the opposite of that late sleep time, but that's in the past.
Well, but we're not a pilot
No.
district, but maybe the pilot ones will
Maybe they can
show
report to
that
us.
no-go.
Right. Well, and Dr. White mentioned Palm Beach County, and not to correct you,
Yeah.
you know, but Orange County was the big county that tried it, and like he said, there was a revolt of parents because, like Dr. White said, it just wasn't working because kids were not being picked up.
Right.
It put a burden on those parents who work, you know, so. One of the board members that I associate with down there, she said it was, you know, one and done because it just was too much on those particular families and all that.
Well, they actually changed back. in
Yeah, they
in
did,
Orange
in
County.
1 year.
Yeah.
1 year.
But then in 26, they got to go. But, well, one good thing is that we're now on our bus rotation. We're in a better shape with buses than we were had this come along a couple years ago. So that's the positive, I guess, on that.
Yes, ma'am. All right. Just to give the board an update on the CTE Triumph application for the North OTC that we put an application in for, that was approved. And just as a reminder, that is a $7.85 million grant, $3.7 million of it going towards the facility. So it looks like that is a go. There's some other procedural things that have to happen, but it's been approved. Mr. Williams has done an absolutely great job, the principal over there at OTC, as well as Ms. Branscombe and her team. So they have, to get a almost $8 million grant to go towards another secondary school at the north end in terms of collegiate level, to give students the ability to go into a number of these trades. I think that's a big deal for the north end of the county. I might even say a game changer for the north end of the county. So just a great job by that team.
I think you're right. It's a game changer, not just for our students that go, but the adult students who might not be able to get down to Fort Walton because of their jobs or whatever, living in Crestview. And of course, we all know the traffic issues there. This is going to help out because then they'll be able to take the classes up there, at least the ones that we offer up there. So.
Absolutely. And then two more updates. And as I start this one, Mr. Meyer, if you'd come forward, just want to give just a little bit of a sales tax update. As you do know, there will be a meeting tomorrow, but you might mention that. But there are a few other members who are going to be coming on that committee. However, one of the things that we always look at as well is how much money is coming in. So we continue to even collect more than what we anticipated. And again, that's not something that we just say, what am I going to spend that on? So we absolutely look at the school's project lists and make sure that anything that we do is on the referendum as well. But Mr. Meyer, if you will go deeper on that topic.
So, good morning. Happy New Year. So things are moving right along. We are ahead of schedule on the revenue that we're bringing in. The task order 12 was the big COP. Those are the ones that everybody sees as they drive by the schools. The classroom additions are all done. Silver Sands, Elliott Point, Crestview High School, and Laurel Hill are all finished. The multi-purpose buildings are coming along. For Walton Beach is open today. So those students will be using that now. And then soon following, Crestview High School and Baker are just a couple months behind. And then Crestview High School towards the end of the school year. And then hopefully Nice will be done before we start school next year. So those are all moving along, and we're excited about those. And then the cafetoriums are moving. Edwin's is the furthest along. That's going to be able to be in use in this summer. And then Wright and Ruckel, as we start next school year. Plough and Bob Sykes should be next fall. So everything's moving quite well with all of those projects. And then, as Mr. Chambers said, we have many more task orders in use, and then we'll meet today, and everything's heading in the right direction.
Fantastic.
Any further questions?
So I do have a question, and I was at a function the other day, and I heard Commissioner Ketchel talk about what the county has brought in. So obviously, that's going to mirror what we brought in. Ms. Perry, this would probably be more directed to Ms. Perry, but looking at what we've collected so far this year, I mean, it's obviously still more than what we've anticipated. Does the trend look like it's kind of slowing down a little bit based on economic issues, I would say, just to be polite?
It's, the collections have held pretty steady from 2 years ago, and then a year ago, and now. It runs, I mean, like a $2 million collection for the month, and run within like $100,000. So it's definitely not going up, but it doesn't, there's not a big drop either.
You said it's not going up.
It's not going up, no, so, because people aren't spending
Right,
money.
right,
No,
right. And
but it hasn't dropped, so.
correct.
That's good.
And I think for the board's awareness, it's the original estimates and where we are today with actual revenue coming in is
Mhm.
substantially higher.
Oh, yes, it's over 50% higher than
Yeah.
what we thought we were gonna be getting.
Is
Yeah.
what, how much?
Over
Yeah,
50%.
Ms. Ketchel, that's about what Ms. Ketchel said too the other day. I was like, yeah,
Yeah.
that-
And
that would
I've said
mirror
this
us.
statement a couple times, correct me if I'm wrong, so do so. And I think the amount that should have come in by this point is roughly 60 million. And I think we've collected about 90 million.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's huge.
Yes.
Awesome.
We're very thankful.
And we still have one of the lowest tax rates in the county, or in the state too, so.
Okay, so I have a question about what we can legally do with that extra. You know, we have those set lists for each school or area. So we may have the extra money, but don't we have to follow
Yeah.
what's in those lists? Or what is the consequence of that?
So a couple things. By the end of the time, we should have collected about 219 million that we know will be much more than that. So one of the first things that we absolutely will do is we'll make sure that we cover every school's project list. So that will absolutely occur in that 10-year period. What will also occur is because there will be additional revenue. And so we'll make certain that any I'll call it a purchase of what we do falls within the referendum, what we said that we
right.
were going to spend it on. One of the things that Mr. Hort, Mr. Meyer, and their group is doing right now is looking at that. So now's the time to say, do we need to reprogram? And by reprogramming, because you're going to get to a point where you'll hit every school's project list, but then there's additional dollars that come in, but again, making sure that you hit the referendum. What Mr. Horton and Mr. Meyer will do will work closely with the Citizens Oversight Committee, as well as Dr. Kelly, and making sure that we're working with the Citizens Oversight Committee, that they're fully informed of what we're doing. So the reprogramming piece will be something that will occur. It's already started in the background, but it's something that's going to continue to come forward.
Okay, good.
If I could add on to that, and y'all know that I don't address everything that I read on Facebook. I don't consider it to be factual like the Channel 3 News, but I just think everything that you've just said addresses one comment that was kind of getting a little buzz over the holiday, and that is we have looked for years, going back to before the sales tax was passed, asking principals and their SACs and their communities what were their school's needs. So every school had an opportunity to put together this list that you referenced. Every school still has an opportunity to go through the proper channels to get any new needs, as you suggested, addressed. And even ongoing, as we all know, through the construction committee, through the citizen sales tax committee, we address all those priority needs. And above and beyond that, we are in communication and partnership with our TPM, our Total Project Management Group. Consult your glossaries, remember. And they give us back that percentage every single time with those projects. And those are able then to be used in advance to go forward with other projects that our principals point out that are needed. So we have worked for years to keep our buildings up to date, and now, thanks to the sales tax, to add new buildings onto schools and to consider and to build new schools. So we have had attention to this for years. So the process and the needs are our priority. Just wanted to put that out there, so whoever is listening, please note that. This is an ongoing process that started years ago, continues to today, and will go forward long past these board members sitting here. Thank
That's
you.
an excellent point, Dr. Kelly. Thank you. Thank you for stating that. So Ms. Berry, I think I remember, and this may be more appropriate to Mr. Horton, these additional revenues, what, did they allow us to do anything in particular? Were we able to escalate our projects and complete projects earlier? Isn't that what I understood? And of course, someone, a very wise person, one time told me, never ask a question you don't know the answer to. And I think I know the answer to this, but it may be that the public might want to hear this. With this additional revenue that we've collected, what were we able to do with that?
And it's an active question, so it's what are we still able to do with those? But you're exactly right, Dr. White. We're able to put more funds and expedite some of the projects that are on the sales tax list. Go back to the original referendum that the board and the voters approved in the general election in 2020. It outlined those items that could be purchased or expenditures could be, and it included things that might not show up on an individual school's sales tax list. For example, excuse me, land purchase or school bus purchases. So those wouldn't appear on an individual school's project list, but they were in fact part of the referendum. So now, as we have dollars in excess of what we anticipated collecting, and I'll go back to just remind that if we originally projected 60 and now we have $90 million in actuality, keep in mind that our cost projections in prior to 2020 have also gone up. So we're paying more for the things that we're doing in our schools right now, but it's still not enough to outstrip the collection. So I would not want to leave this meeting saying we have 30 million extra new dollars that we need to do something with. But there are funds. But you're right, Dr. White, able to expedite some things and also do things strategically within the district, like purchase land or purchase school buses, while simultaneously completing all of the projects on the school's project list. And sometimes, and I'll say one more thing, and then we may have a certain number of projects of a given type across the school district that are going to be funded through sales tax, and the capacity of the industry to do those projects may be already exhausted right
Right.
now. And
That's
we
true.
do like to have local folks to the best of our ability work in our schools. And so it may be that we can't actually do 20 similar projects all at the same time. They have to be programmed out over time.
Right.
So it's not always about getting every single thing done on the project list because it can't physically be done in a shortened time frame in some cases, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and it does, and I appreciate your caveat there about cost. And of course, we've also, like other school districts in the state and what we've done before, we borrowed against this future revenue. And how are we doing with meeting our debt obligations?
Yes, absolutely.
Of course,
No problem at all.
because we have additional revenue, and it may be that we may be able to resolve some of those in an earlier fashion than perhaps we anticipated.
It's very possible, Dr. White, to bring to the point and recall the borrowing for these projects that Mr. Meyer just spoke of. The repayment schedule for that was the same timeline as the sales tax
That's right.
program, so it's within 10 years. And the other thing that I think Mr. Chambers and this board had the foresight to do is they actually even front-loaded the repayment schedule. So we're paying more on that debt for the first 3 years of it, and so that once we hit year 4, 5, and beyond, it's a lesser burden on the borrowing, which would allow you to expedite the payoff if that was something that the board wanted to do, or use that extra funds to continue to do projects in the district.
Well, and it may be that you'll be bringing to us another COP because we have additional revenue, but it's just not collected yet.
Right. And in that respect, obviously with the new school construction for Crestview, the K-8 school, the 3-5 center at Destin Elementary, that's going to be a 30-plus classroom addition, and some other possible things, then those bundled together as the next programming piece
Right.
for heavy construction would result in us bringing a COP request to the board later this spring as we get toward the end of the year.
And again, because we've collected more money.
Yes, sir.
Right.
And with the current one, once that first 3 years happens, they have to have those big projects done.
That's right. That's right.
So then hopefully that manpower will be able to do some of these other projects that we'll then have money to do.
Are we going into the third year now?
This is, yes,
Mhm.
this is the
That's what I thought.
He's running the math.
I'm doing the math, that we began collections in January of '21.
Yeah.
So we've actually
22, we
completed
just
3 years of
finished 3
the 10-year program. We're
Okay,
beginning
so
year 4.
now we're actually going into year 4.
Going into year 4. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Wow.
And then, just to follow up on Ms. Perry's point, I think Mr. Meyer said that some of the cafetoriums, the final ones will be completed fall of '24. So if you go back to when we put the COP out to the marketplace, it was in the spring of '22. And so we need to substantially be finished with all of those 19 projects by spring of '25. So it looks to be that we're a good number of months ahead of schedule, as Jacob Titan would report to us on those projects.
Good. Yeah. Anything else? Thank you, Superintendent. What else?
And I would just say, think about the question that was just asked, how many years? 3 years. And think about the number of projects and what has occurred in 3 years' time. So it's substantial.
Yep.
And the last thing I want to share is the weather. So this is something that we've been paying attention to this weekend, looking at I'll just call it the weather that's coming forward, and it looks like potentially it's coming in 2 phases, starting later this evening. We did send a message out to families yesterday, letting them know that this is something that we're paying attention to. Put it on the website, put it on the social media. There's a 10:30 update today, so we'll be talking with our emergency management folks today, Mr. Patrick Maddox, about that. Mr. Horton also reaches out to Eglin just to get a little bit more information. We also reached out to all the surrounding superintendents from Escambia to Bay to see what they are doing. I did receive word that a number of the school districts to our east and northeast will be canceling school tomorrow based on this. And of course, weather can be different in different areas, but this is something that we will look at. some of the information that's coming out right now is 35, 40 mile an hour sustained winds, possibility of tornadoes, some gusts going up into 60, 70 miles an hour. So we will do like we always do. We'll be very, very diligent about the information that we get, make sure that we communicate with our families, and make sure that we communicate with our schools. I will say that we will take the appropriate level of being conservative, because we're talking about the safety of students and our employees, but we will wait for the most accurate information before making that decision. And that's all I have.
And I know we have a student group coming, and should things get to the point where you feel like they don't need to be here, you'll communicate with them and let them know, and then we'll know about that. And Mr. McInnes, as far as the board meeting's concerned, we have business
Yes, sir.
that has to be formally approved for the school district, so we're meeting.
Correct.
Okay.
And as it currently stands, we'll be fine. As it currently stands, it's, I think, around midnight tonight is when it's
Yeah.
supposed to come through, but again, from an update, things
Yeah.
things could change.
Okay, so we're gonna be here, is what we're saying.
As far as we know, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. All right, so anything else, sir?
No,
Superintendent?
sir, I appreciate it.
All right, yes, sir. All right, so that takes us now to board members' business, and so, Ms. Evancheck, I'll start with you, ma'am.
Okay. So we've already talked about the big event, so I'm excited about that, so I hope the weather holds so we can do that. A couple of other things. I just wanted to make sure that I, for the record, tell the board that as the board's representative to the Value Adjustment Board, that I did attend and participate in the final one of the year. That's where the property appraiser's office has to send tax rolls into the state. And just to have it on the record that I was there and participated in that. Also want to say that for everyone to notice that the Teachers Credit Union branch for Niceville has moved out of our area and has moved and opened today down at Palm Plaza. So don't come here. They're not here. So all that. Then, Mr. McInnes, based on a meeting we had earlier today, I would like to ask you if you could look into, as based on our policy, how we define distribution when it comes to activity of students and in the matter we were discussing this morning, and make sure that we have a clarification on that, and perhaps that it is similar or balances out with other local districts. Does that make sense, what I'm asking you?
ma'am.
Yeah. And if you could get that back to the board, I would appreciate that.
Certainly.
Okay, thank you. That's all.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, Mr. Bryant, sir.
Thank you, Dr. White. Again, welcome back. 2024, it's hard to believe, 2024. I hope everybody had a great holiday, Christmas season. I know we did. I can speak for my colleagues that have grandchildren. It's a whole different ballgame when you have a grandchild involved. So I know we had a great time. I will just follow up on Mr. Chambers' statement about the session starting January 9th. As we know, this is an election year, so things are going to be moving really fast up until March. I can't remember the ending date, 17th or something like that. I know next week I'll be in Tallahassee for 2 days representing our school board, but also I know my colleagues have talked to our representatives about things that are important to state law that will affect Okaloosa County. I know there's a lot of things that are happening regarding deregulation. And I know I've already talked to Representative Maney and Representative Rudman. When I'm in Tallahassee next week, I know I have a meeting with Senator Trumbull and still trying to set up a meeting with Senator Broxton. But it's a very big deal, and we're hoping that this law goes through, that will make the playing field level for public schools versus all the other entities that are a part of public education or education in general. And then the following week, be heading down to Orlando with the Florida School Board Insurance Trust, and we'll be coming back in February with an update to what we discussed in that meeting. So really a lot going on in the month of January as a representative filling in positions that this board has asked me to fill in for. So I'm really excited to be able to represent Okaloosa County in that capacity. And with that, again, just thank you for the great time the other day. I know I left energized and ready to go. So thank you, Mr. Chambers.
And thank you, Tim, for representing us
Yep.
and all you do at
Well,
the
we
state
do,
level.
we do have great teamwork because I was in Tampa, had to make a call for the Value Adjustment Board.
Right,
so,
yes.
So we did work together on that.
That's
So
right. We did.
All right, thank you, Mr. Bryant. Dr. Kelly?
Well, I just have one major one, but it's a big one. And that is kudos to the Niceville High School Eagle Pride Band who represented their school,
Yeah.
the community, the whole
Great.
district, and band directors for just such an exceptional job. And I'll just say the one word that came to mind when I was watching them was precision. Just think about the precision that it took, besides the planning, the preparation, and all of that, to get them there. They started a couple of years ago, I believe, when the band director, Mr. Wooten, announced that they were going. They'd gotten the word that they were going, and all the planning, all of the support from this community, the businesses, the parents, the grandparents, all the practice, and even our military community for helping them get loaded up and with such precision get them loaded, get them there, the time that they had, all the different events that they got to do while they were there. What an experience for these children. What lifelong, life-impactful experiences that they will have to carry with them into the future. So just congratulations to everyone who was involved in that endeavor. And with that, I'll just say Happy New Year.
Thank you, Dr. Kelly. All right, so that, any remarks I have, I'll make tonight. We'll move on down to section 14, public comment. We don't know yet. All right, then section 15, we have 2 of 3 public hearings. So 15.1 is a public hearing for the adoption of revised school board policy 03-05, procedure for handling criticism of library books or educational material, presented by Ms. Tasha Bates. 15.2, public hearing for the adoption of Resolution 24-1, approving the proposed real estate exchange between the School Board of Okaloosa and Ruckle Properties and surplusing school board property located on Lancaster Drive in Niceville. Mr. McInnes, is this the one that you're asking?
Yes, sir, this is the one we'd ask tonight that you would vote to reschedule when it comes up on your agenda tonight.
Okay, so it's still going to be on the agenda, we're just going to reschedule.
Right, they're working apparently on an addendum to that, and we'll bring the whole thing back with that addendum.
All right, well, help me refresh my memory tonight when we get to this,
Yes, sir.
okay? 15.3, public hearing for adoption of Resolution 24-02, approving the proposed contract for purchase and sale agreement between the School Board of Okaloosa and Ruckle Properties for a parcel of real property located on Palm Boulevard North, Niceville, Florida, presented by Dr. Smith. That takes us through the public hearings and brings us down to adjournment unless there's anything further from staff, the associations, or anybody here at this dais. We all good? All right, adjourn.